I always prided myself on maintaining a strong, confident demeanor. As a successful project manager at a thriving tech firm, I had built a life that many envied. My wife, Laura, and I seemed to epitomize the perfect couple. Our friends admired our relationship, and our families respected the bond we shared. But beneath the surface, things were far from perfect. Laura was beautiful, no doubt about that. But over the years, her charm had morphed into something more sinister. She became manipulative, deceitful, and increasingly difficult to live with. Our conversations, once filled with laughter and mutual respect, had devolved into constant arguments and accusations. Yet, I remained confident that we could work through our issues. After all, we had built a life together, and I believed in the sanctity of our marriage. My mother, Karen, was always a pillar of support. She and Laura shared a complicated relationship. On the surface, Karen appeared to adore Laura, often lavishing her with compliments and gifts. But I could sense an undercurrent of disdain whenever Laura was around her. Karen had a way of speaking that could cut through pretenses, and I knew she didn't truly respect my wife. One evening, as I returned home from a late meeting, I noticed the house was unusually quiet. Laura was supposed to host a dinner party for her friends, but there was no sign of any preparations. Assuming she was running late, I shrugged it off and settled into the living room to unwind. Half an hour later, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Laura standing there, flustered and out of breath. "I'm so sorry I'm late," she said, forcing a smile. "The party ran over, and traffic was a nightmare." I invited her in, but something felt off. Her eyes darted nervously, and she seemed unusually tense. As we sat down to dinner, the atmosphere was strained. Laura was curt, barely engaging in conversation, and her friends seemed uncomfortable under her increasingly abrasive behavior. After dinner, as I cleared the dishes, I overheard snippets of a heated conversation between Laura and my mother in the kitchen. The words idiot and cover-up pierced the air, and my heart sank. My instincts told me something was terribly wrong, but I needed to confront them head-on. Determined to get to the bottom of this, I decided to take control of the situation. I couldn't let Laura tear apart the life we had built, nor could I allow my mother's apparent support of her to undermine my confidence. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a tangled web of deceit that would challenge everything I believed in. The following days were a whirlwind of suspicion and unease. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Laura's behavior had become increasingly erratic, late nights at the office that seemed unusually vague, hushed phone calls she swiftly ended when I approached, and a coldness that gnawed at the foundation of our marriage. Determined to uncover the truth, I began to pay closer attention to Laura's routines. My confidence didn't waver, instead, it fueled my resolve to get to the bottom of this mess. I knew I deserved honesty, and I wasn't about to let deceit tarnish the life we had built together. One evening, as I was leaving the office, I decided to take a different route home. My gut told me that Laura might be needing someone, and I wasn't about to ignore that instinct. As I drove through our neighborhood, I noticed Laura's car parked outside a cafe she rarely visited. My heart pounded in my chest, a mix of anxiety and determination coursing through me. I parked discreetly a few blocks away and watched as Laura entered the cafe. Minutes felt like hours, but eventually, she emerged, looking flustered and disheveled. Her eyes darted around nervously, and she seemed desperate to leave. I followed her at a safe distance, keeping to the shadows. Laura led me to a secluded park where she met with a man I didn't recognize. They exchanged a few words, and before I could get a better look, they parted ways. My mind raced, this confirmed my worst fears. She was having an affair. As I stood there, processing the betrayal, a voice echoed in my mind, "I told you something was off." My mother's subtle hints now made chilling sense. But why would Karen help Laura cover this up? The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fall into place, and each revelation only deepened the mystery. Returning home that night, I was a storm of emotions: anger, hurt, and a burning need for answers. I confronted Laura, presenting the evidence I had gathered. Her reaction was everything I expected and more. She dismissed my accusations with a wave of her hand, her facade of innocence slipping to reveal pure contempt. "You're overreacting as usual," she snapped, her voice dripping with disdain. Maybe if you weren't such an idiot, I wouldn't have to find someone else. Her words cut deeper than I anticipated. The term idiot echoed the same insults I'd overheard between her and my mother. It was clear they were conspiring against me, but the question remained, why? Determined not to let them manipulate the situation, I decided to dig deeper into my mother's involvement. If Karen was aiding Laura in this deceit, there had to be a reason. My confidence remained unshaken. I was resolute in reclaiming my life and exposing the truth. The days following my confrontation with Laura were a tumultuous blend of suspicion and introspection. My mind kept replaying her dismissive remarks and the harsh idiot she threw my way, a term I never thought she'd use. It stung, not just because of the insult, but because it confirmed that she no longer respected me. Determined to understand the depth of the betrayal, I began scrutinizing every aspect of our lives. I revisited old messages, checked her phone when she wasn't looking, and even delved into her social media accounts. Each discovery only deepened my unease. There were vague messages from a contact named Jay, filled with flirtatious undertones that Laura had conveniently omitted from our conversations. My confidence remained intact, though it was now tinged with a cautious vigilance. I refused to let her deceit break me. Instead, I used it as fuel to uncover the truth. However, the more I dug, the more convoluted the situation became. Laura wasn't just seeing someone, she was entangled in a web of lies that seemed to involve more than just her and Jay. One evening, as I was sorting through some old photographs, my mother, Karen, walked into the room. Her presence was always a double-edged sword, supportive yet critical. I decided to broach the subject carefully. "Mom, can we talk?" She nodded, taking a seat beside me. "Of course, dear. What's on your mind?" I hesitated, then decided to be direct. "I know Laura has been acting differently. I saw her with another man, and I'm trying to understand what's going on." Karen's expression remained calm, but I could sense an underlying tension. "Laura has been under a lot of stress lately with her job and other things. Maybe she just needs some space." Her response was predictable, but something in her demeanor didn't sit right with me. There was a guardedness, a reluctance to provide the full picture. I pressed further, "Is there something you're not telling me, Mom?" She sighed, looking away for a moment before meeting my gaze again. "I wish I could help more, but Laura has been very secretive. Just give her some time to sort things out." Her evasiveness only fueled my suspicions. Why wasn't she being more forthcoming? And why had I overheard her calling me an idiot? It was becoming clear that Karen was more involved in Laura's deception than I had initially realized. That night, sleep eluded me. My thoughts were a whirlwind of anger and betrayal. How could the two people I trusted the most conspire against me? The idea was almost too painful to accept, yet the evidence was undeniable. Determined to get to the bottom of this, I decided to take a different approach. Instead of directly confronting Laura or my mother, I would gather more evidence and observe their interactions more closely. If they were hiding something, their patterns of behavior would eventually reveal it. Over the next week, I maintained a facade of normalcy, attending to my work and our social obligations. Internally, I was meticulously piecing together the puzzle. I noticed small inconsistencies. Laura's stories didn't always add up, and Karen seemed to deflect questions with ease. One afternoon, while going through some of Laura's old journals, a decision I made out of desperation, I stumbled upon entries that hinted at deeper issues in her life. There were mentions of pressure from her family, unexplained financial strains, and cryptic references to someone named Jay being more than just a casual affair. The more I read, the more I realized that Laura was entangled in circumstances far more complicated than a simple affair. It seemed there were external forces at play, perhaps orchestrated by Karen, to keep me in the dark. The revelations from Laura's journals haunted me long after I had closed the worn leather cover. Each entry was a window into a world I never knew existed, a world where Laura wasn't just having an affair, but was entangled in something far more sinister. The mentions of Jay hinted at a connection that went beyond mere infidelity, suggesting financial troubles or perhaps something even darker. Determined to uncover the truth, I decided to confront my mother, Karen, once more. Her evasive behavior and subtle support for Laura couldn't go unnoticed any longer. I needed answers, and I was prepared to dig deep to find them. One Saturday morning, I invited Karen over for breakfast under the guise of mending our strained relationship. She arrived promptly, her demeanor as poised and graceful as ever, but I could sense the tension beneath her calm exterior. "Mom, we need to talk," I began, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. She placed the stack of pancakes on the table and sat down, her eyes meeting mine with a guarded expression. "Of course, dear. What's troubling you?" I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. I've been going through Laura's journals, and there are references to someone named Jay that go beyond a simple affair. It seems like there's more to this situation, something you might know about. Karen's eyes flickered with a momentary flash of panic before she regained her composure. Laura has always been a private person. Maybe Jay is just a coworker or a friend she confides in. I wasn't buying it. You've been helping her cover up her affair, haven't you? I heard you call me an idiot, Karen. What's really going on here? Her facade cracked for just a second, revealing a glimpse of the disdain I had sensed all along. I don't know what you're talking about, she snapped, her voice laced with irritation. I've always supported you and Laura. But the truth was staring me in the face. Karen was in on it. She wasn't just supporting Laura, she was actively helping her manipulate and deceive me. The betrayal cut deeper than I had anticipated. Not only was my wife unfaithful, but my own mother was colluding with her to destroy our marriage. Fueled by a mix of anger and determination, I decided to take matters into my own hands. If Karen and Laura were working together, I needed to expose them both. But how? That evening, I began to meticulously gather evidence. I combed through emails, text messages, and financial records, looking for any link that tied Laura and Karen together in this elaborate scheme. Hours turned into days as I pieced together the puzzle, my confidence unwavering despite the emotional turmoil. Then, I found it, a series of encrypted emails between Laura and Karen, discussing ways to manipulate my perceptions and divert suspicion from Laura's actions. They had been orchestrating everything, from the staged dinner party to the fabricated alibi that allowed Laura to meet with Jay without raising my suspicions. With the evidence in hand, I knew it was time to confront both of them. I arranged a meeting at our home, inviting Laura and Karen under the pretense of resolving our issues once and for all. As the day approached, my resolve only strengthened. I was no longer the naive husband oblivious to the deceit around him, I was a man empowered by the truth, ready to reclaim his life. When the day arrived, the atmosphere was tense. Laura entered first, her usual facade of grace slipping as she sensed the gravity of the situation. Karen followed, her posture defensive yet composed. I took a deep breath and laid out the evidence before them, every detail meticulously documented. Laura, Karen, I know everything, I declared, my voice firm and unwavering. You've both been conspiring against me, manipulating our lives to cover up your lies and deceit. Laura's eyes narrowed, and she stepped forward, her demeanor turning hostile. You have no proof. You're just being paranoid. But I had more than proof, I had undeniable evidence. These emails prove everything. You've been working together to deceive me, to hide your affair and manipulate our marriage for your own benefit. Karen tried to interject, her voice trembling, this is absurd. You're blowing things out of proportion. I ignored her attempts to deflect, my confidence bolstered by the truth. No, Karen. You're not blowing anything out of proportion. You're protecting Laura at my expense, making me look like the idiot while you both benefit from my obliviousness. The room fell silent, the weight of my accusations hanging heavily in the air. Laura's facade crumbled, revealing a mixture of fear and anger, while Karen's composed exterior finally gave way to genuine remorse. In the days that followed, I meticulously planned my next moves. Laura had always been the more impulsive one, and I knew her temper would flare if she sensed that I was gaining the upper hand. Karen, on the other hand, was the silent saboteur, calm on the surface but harboring her own agenda. I needed to dismantle their alliance without tipping my hand too early. I started by securing all our financial records. Laura had been draining our joint accounts, funneling money into offshore accounts under false pretenses. With each discovery, my resolve hardened. I consulted with a trusted attorney, ensuring that I was legally protected and prepared to expose their financial manipulations. Meanwhile, Laura's behavior became increasingly erratic. She lashed out at friends and family, blaming me for her actions. Her lies grew more elaborate, but my confidence never wavered. I knew that beneath her abrasive exterior was a woman desperate to maintain her facade, and I was determined to strip that away. Karen, sensing that her influence over Laura might be waning, became more insistent in her support. She would drop subtle hints, trying to manipulate situations to her advantage. "Maybe you need to take a break, dear," she would suggest, her tone sweet but her eyes cold. It was clear she was still siding with Laura, but I was no longer naive enough to be fooled by her deceptions. One evening, as I was reviewing the financial documents, Laura barged into my study. "What are you doing in here?" she demanded, her voice dripping with contempt. "Haven't you got anything better to do than invade my privacy?" I looked up, meeting her gaze with unwavering confidence. "I'm ensuring that our financial future is secure. It seems you've been making some questionable decisions lately." She scoffed, her face contorting with anger. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Always trying to control everything. Maybe you should try being a bit more understanding instead of acting like an idiot." Her use of the word idiot again confirmed the extent of her contempt for me. But instead of feeling defeated, I felt empowered. I had the upper hand now, armed with evidence and a clear understanding of their betrayal. Determined to protect myself and reclaim my life, I began to implement my plan for revenge. It wasn't about spite, it was about ensuring that their actions had consequences. I started by freezing their access to our joint accounts, cutting off the financial lifelines they had exploited. Laura's attempts to override my decisions were futile, her frustration palpable as she realized her control was slipping away. Next, I turned my attention to their social circles. Laura had always been the life of the party, using her charm to manipulate those around her. I discreetly informed our friends and colleagues about her deceit, providing them with the evidence I had gathered. The fallout was swift. Friends distanced themselves, shocked by the revelations of her duplicity. Karen, too, faced the repercussions of her alliance with Laura. Once respected and admired, her reputation began to tarnish as whispers of her involvement in Laura's schemes spread. The woman who had once been my pillar of support was now revealed as a conspirator, her influence over Laura exposed for all to see. Throughout this turmoil, my emotional state was a whirlwind of emotions. There were moments of anger and frustration, but my confidence remained unshaken. I knew I was doing the right thing, dismantling the web of lies they had spun. Each step I took towards reclaiming my life reinforced my belief in my own strength and resilience. But just as I began to feel a sense of victory, an unexpected twist awaited me. One evening, while going through some of Laura's personal belongings, I stumbled upon a hidden compartment in her closet. Inside, I found a stack of letters addressed to someone named Evelyn. The letters were filled with intimate details and references to meetings in secluded locations. This revelation added another layer to the already complex situation, hinting at a deeper entanglement that I hadn't anticipated. As I held the letters in my hands, a new determination settled over me. There was more to this story than just an affair and financial deceit. The presence of Evelyn suggested that Laura's manipulations extended even further, and I was more determined than ever to uncover the full extent of their betrayal. The discovery of the letters to Evelyn was a pivotal moment. As I held the fragile, yellowed pages in my hands, a new layer of deceit began to unfold. These weren't just personal correspondences, they hinted at a calculated manipulation that extended far beyond a simple affair. Evelyn seemed to be more than just a mistress, she appeared to be an accomplice in Laura's intricate web of lies. Determined to uncover the truth, I decided to track down Evelyn. My confidence remained unshaken, I was resolute in my mission to expose every facet of Laura's betrayal. Using the information from the letters, I traced Evelyn to a high-end hotel in the city. Discreetly, I made arrangements to meet her under the guise of seeking reconciliation for Laura and me. When the day of the meeting arrived, I felt a surge of anticipation mixed with a steely determination. Walking into the hotel lobby, I scanned the crowd until I spotted Evelyn, a striking woman with an air of authority and sophistication. She greeted me with a cool professionalism that immediately set her apart from Laura's volatile demeanor. "Thank you for meeting with me," I began, my voice steady. "I need to understand your relationship with Laura." Evelyn regarded me thoughtfully before responding. "Laura and I have a professional relationship. We collaborate on various projects, but there's nothing more to it." Her calm demeanor only fueled my suspicion. There was a calculated distance in her responses, a stark contrast to Laura's blatant deceit. I pressed further, showing her one of the letters. "These letters suggest otherwise. Care to explain?" Evelyn's eyes narrowed slightly, but she maintained her composure. "Those were personal notes, nothing more." "Laura has a way with words." I wasn't convinced. "They imply coordination and planning. Are you involved in Laura's schemes to deceive me?" Her expression hardened. "You're jumping to conclusions. Laura is an adult who makes her own decisions. If you have concerns, perhaps you should address them directly with her." Frustration bubbled beneath my calm exterior. Evelyn was clearly hiding something, but without concrete evidence, pushing further could jeopardize everything. I decided to leave the meeting, knowing that Evelyn was a piece of the puzzle I hadn't yet fully understood. Back at home, I reflected on the encounter. Evelyn's evasiveness indicated that she was more deeply involved than she let on. My confidence was now coupled with a heightened sense of urgency. I needed to connect the dots between Evelyn, Karen, and the broader scheme Laura had orchestrated. As the days progressed, I continued to gather evidence, meticulously documenting every inconsistency and deceit. My professional skills as a project manager proved invaluable in organizing the information and strategizing my next moves. I realized that Laura and Karen had crafted a facade so convincing that even those closest to me had been oblivious to the manipulation. One evening, while reviewing financial records, I stumbled upon a series of transactions that didn't align with our household expenses. Funds had been diverted to an account registered under Evelyn's name. This revelation was the missing link. Evelyn wasn't just a professional associate, she was a key player in the financial deception that Laura and Karen had orchestrated. Armed with this new information, I decided to confront Evelyn once more, this time with undeniable proof. I arranged another meeting, this time bringing along the financial statements that linked Evelyn directly to the fraudulent activities. When I presented the evidence, Evelyn's composed facade shattered. "All right, you got me," she admitted, her voice tinged with resignation. "Laura and Karen have been planning this for months. We needed someone to handle the financial side without raising suspicion." The confession was a significant breakthrough, but it also revealed the extent of their manipulation. Laura had not only betrayed me emotionally but had also involved others in a complex scheme to undermine my stability and reputation. With Evelyn's confession fresh in my mind, I felt a surge of momentum. The pieces of the puzzle were finally aligning, but there was still much to uncover. Laura and Karen had orchestrated a multi-layered deception, and I was determined to dismantle every part of their scheme. My confidence was unshaken, if anything, it had grown stronger, fueled by the evidence I had amassed. The next step was to expose their financial manipulations publicly. I scheduled a meeting with my attorney, Sarah, a sharp and resourceful lawyer who had always been a pillar of support. I laid out everything: Laura's affair, Karen's collusion, the encrypted emails, and Evelyn's involvement. Sarah listened intently, her expression shifting from concern to determination as the layers of deceit unfolded. "This is serious," she said, her voice firm. "We have a solid case here. But we need to proceed carefully to ensure that everything holds up legally." I nodded, appreciating her pragmatic approach. "I want to make sure they can't escape the consequences of what they've done. They need to be exposed for manipulating not just our marriage, but our finances and reputations as well." Sarah outlined our strategy: we would gather all the necessary evidence, secure testimonies, and prepare for a court battle if necessary. Meanwhile, I needed to keep up the facade of normalcy to prevent Laura and Karen from suspecting that their cover was slipping. Returning home, I decided to confront Laura one more time, this time armed with undeniable proof. She had been avoiding me since the confrontation with Karen, but I knew that she couldn't hide forever. I found her in the living room, sulking on the couch, her usual arrogance replaced by a veneer of vulnerability. "Laura," I began, my voice calm but authoritative. "We need to talk." She looked up, her eyes darting with a mix of fear and defiance. "What now? Haven't you done enough already?" I took a deep breath, maintaining my composed demeanor. "I have more evidence now. I know about the financial transactions, the offshore accounts, and your involvement with Evelyn. It's time to end this." Her face twisted into a mask of anger. "You think you can just expose me? You're pathetic." I met her gaze steadily. "No, Laura. I think you're pathetic. Manipulating everyone around you, using my mother to cover your tracks, it's despicable." She stood up abruptly, knocking over a vase in the process. "You're the idiot here. Always so sure of yourself, thinking you have it all figured out. Maybe it's time you accept that you're not as smart as you think." Her insult stung, but I remained unfazed. Her boorish behavior was exactly what I needed to fuel my determination. I turned to leave, knowing that any further confrontation would be futile. But before I could take a step, Karen entered the room, her expression unreadable. "Enough, both of you," Karen interjected, her voice cold and authoritative. "This isn't the time or place for this discussion." I glanced between them, realizing that Karen was trying to maintain some semblance of control. "It's exactly the time, Mom. You're both part of this, and it needs to end." Karen's eyes flashed with a mixture of anger and resignation. "You don't understand the bigger picture. There are things at stake here that you can't comprehend." I felt a surge of frustration but kept my emotions in check. "Explain it then. If there's something more you're hiding, now is the time to come clean." She hesitated for a moment before speaking. "There are financial pressures you're not aware of. Laura was handling things behind the scenes, ensuring our family's stability. Without her, everything would fall apart." Her words only deepened my suspicions. It was clear that Laura had convinced Karen to support her manipulations, painting herself as the savior of our family's finances. But I knew the truth was far darker. Determined to leave no stone unturned, I decided to investigate the financial pressures Karen mentioned. I accessed our joint accounts, meticulously tracking every transaction. It didn't take long to uncover the truth. Laura had been siphoning funds to cover her extravagant lifestyle and the secret payments to Evelyn. The financial strain was a smokescreen to justify her deceitful actions and to keep me oblivious to her true motives. Armed with this knowledge, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. It wasn't just about exposing her infidelity anymore, it was about reclaiming what was rightfully mine and ensuring that Laura and Karen faced the consequences of their actions. My confidence remained steadfast, bolstered by each revelation and the unwavering support of Sarah. But just as I was beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel, an unexpected twist threw everything into chaos. One evening, as I was reviewing the financial records for the umpteenth time, I received an anonymous tip. The message was simple but alarming: "Meet me at the old warehouse on Maple Street at midnight. I have information that will change everything." Intrigued and cautious, I decided to investigate. The old warehouse was a relic from my childhood, a place filled with memories but long abandoned. As midnight approached, I drove to the location, my mind racing with possibilities. Was this a trap orchestrated by Laura and Karen, or was someone else involved in their scheme? Parking a safe distance away, I approached the warehouse, the cool night air heightening my senses. I entered cautiously, the silence enveloping me like a shroud. Inside, I found a figure standing in the shadows. "Evelyn. Why did you call me here?" I demanded, stepping into the dim light. Evelyn's expression was somber. "There's something you need to know. Laura and Karen aren't just manipulating our finances, they're involved in something much bigger. Something illegal." My heart raced. "What are you talking about?" She took a deep breath, her eyes filled with urgency. "They're laundering money through the offshore accounts. It's not just about personal gain, they're part of a larger criminal network. I was coerced into helping them, but I want out. I can provide evidence to bring them down completely." The revelation sent shockwaves through me. Laura and Karen weren't just deceitful partners in our personal lives, they were entangled in criminal activities that could ruin us all. This was the twist I hadn't seen coming, adding a dangerous layer to their betrayal. I weighed my options quickly. Partnering with Evelyn could provide the leverage I needed to take them down, but it also introduced new risks. Trusting her was a gamble, but the potential payoff was immense. "All right," I said, my voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "I'm willing to hear you out. But if you're lying, there will be consequences." Evelyn nodded, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. "Meet me again tomorrow, and I'll bring the evidence. We need to act fast before they realize you're onto them." The revelation about Laura and Karen's involvement in money laundering was a seismic shift in my understanding of the betrayal I was facing. It wasn't just a personal affront anymore, it was a matter of criminal activity that could have far-reaching consequences. Yet, amidst the chaos, my confidence remained unshaken. I had navigated through deceit and manipulation before, and I was determined to see this through. Evelyn's offer to help was both a lifeline and a new complication. Trusting her was a gamble, but the potential to dismantle Laura and Karen's criminal network was too significant to ignore. I agreed to meet her the following day, knowing that time was of the essence. The next morning, I woke with a renewed sense of purpose. I met Evelyn at a discreet cafe, far from the prying eyes of friends and colleagues. She arrived promptly, her demeanor professional and focused. "I've gathered the documents you need," she said, sliding a manila folder across the table. "This includes transaction records, communication logs, and witness statements." I meticulously reviewed the contents, each piece of evidence solidifying the case against Laura and Karen. The depth of their involvement was staggering. They weren't just laundering money, they were orchestrating a sophisticated scheme to siphon funds from multiple sources, all while maintaining their facade of normalcy. As we strategized, Evelyn revealed another layer to their operation. "There's a safe house in the outskirts of the city where they conduct their meetings. It's heavily guarded, but I have a contact who can provide access if needed." The plan was risky, but it was the breakthrough we needed. With this information, we could potentially bring down their entire network. I felt a surge of determination. This was my chance to not only reclaim my life but also to prevent others from falling victim to their schemes. However, I knew that Laura wouldn't go down without a fight. Her boorish behavior and relentless lies had already caused enough pain. Now, armed with undeniable evidence and a clear path to justice, it was time to turn the tables. That evening, I decided to confront Laura one last time before taking any drastic measures. I found her in our bedroom, her posture defensive as always. The room was tense, the air thick with unspoken accusations. "Laura," I began, my voice calm but firm. "We need to talk." She looked up, her eyes filled with a mix of anger and fear. "What now? Haven't you done enough already?" I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. "I know everything, Laura. About the affair, the money laundering, and your mother's involvement. It's time to end this." Her face contorted with rage. "You think you can just expose me? You're pathetic. Maybe if you weren't such an idiot, none of this would be happening." Her use of the word idiot echoed the same disdain I had heard from Karen. But instead of feeling hurt, I felt empowered. "No, Laura. You're the pathetic one. Manipulating everyone around you, using my mother to cover your tracks, it's despicable." She lunged at me, her anger boiling over. "You have no idea what you're talking about. You're just trying to ruin everything we've built." I stood my ground, unwavering. "Not everything. You've built a house of lies, and it's time for it to crumble." Her rage was palpable, but I remained composed. "I'm done being your pawn. I'm reclaiming my life, and I'm taking you and your mother down with you." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving her to stew in her own bitterness. The confrontation was a pivotal moment. Laura's inability to accept the truth only solidified my resolve to bring her to justice. Returning home, I shared the latest developments with Evelyn. Together, we refined our plan to infiltrate the safe house and gather irrefutable evidence. The stakes were higher than ever, but my confidence was steadfast. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore, I was fighting to dismantle a criminal operation that threatened our community. As the days turned into weeks, the preparations intensified. Evelyn and I coordinated with local law enforcement, ensuring that every step was meticulously planned. The safe house was scheduled for a covert operation, and the weight of the impending confrontation hung heavy in the air. Throughout this period, my emotional state was a complex blend of determination, anger, and a relentless pursuit of justice. Every discovery, every piece of evidence, fueled my resolve. I refused to let Laura's deceit define me or dictate the course of my life. One evening, as I was poring over the final details of our plan, my phone buzzed with an unexpected message: "Meet me at the old warehouse on Maple Street at midnight. I have information that will change everything." My heart raced. Could this be another twist orchestrated by Laura and Karen to throw me off balance? Or was it another ally reaching out to help us dismantle the criminal network? Deciding to take the risk, I arrived at the warehouse as the clock struck midnight. The place was eerily silent, the shadows casting long, ominous shapes across the floor. Evelyn was already there, waiting for me. "We need to move quickly," she whispered, urgency etched into her features. "Laura and Karen are planning something big tonight. It's their final play to secure their assets and eliminate any loose ends." I felt a chill run down my spine. What are they planning? Evelyn handed me a USB drive. "This contains detailed plans of their operations, including their next move. We need to intercept it before they execute their plan." As I took the USB, a sense of clarity washed over me. This was the turning point, the moment where everything would either come together or fall apart. My confidence remained unshaken. I was ready to face whatever came next, armed with the truth and a steadfast determination to see justice served. The night air was thick with anticipation as Evelyn and I approached the safe house on the outskirts of the city. The streets were deserted, the only sounds the distant hum of traffic and the occasional rustle of leaves stirred by the cool breeze. My heart pounded with a mix of adrenaline and determination. This was it, the moment that would either dismantle Laura and Karen's empire or plunge me deeper into their web of deceit. Evelyn glanced at me, her expression serious. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, her voice steady despite the gravity of our mission. I nodded, my confidence unwavering. "Absolutely. We've come too far to turn back now." We approached the nondescript building, its facade blending seamlessly with the surrounding warehouses. Evelyn produced a set of keys from her pocket, unlocking the door with practiced ease. Inside, the space was dimly lit, the air heavy with the scent of old wood and metal. The safe house was exactly as Evelyn had described, strategically located, heavily guarded, and meticulously maintained. "Stay close," she whispered, her eyes scanning the room for any signs of movement. We moved silently through the corridors, navigating past locked doors and security cameras with the precision of seasoned operatives. My mind was laser-focused, every sense heightened as we made our way deeper into the heart of their operation. The stakes couldn't be higher, any misstep could jeopardize everything we'd worked for. Finally, we reached the main office, a room filled with filing cabinets, computers, and stacks of paperwork. Evelyn quickly set to work, hacking into the system to access their financial records and communication logs. I kept watch, my eyes darting between the entrance and the windows, ensuring that no unexpected threats emerged. Minutes felt like hours, but eventually, Evelyn let out a satisfied sigh. "Got it," she said, handing me a USB drive. "This contains everything we need: proof of their money laundering activities, connections to other criminal entities, and even recordings of their conversations." I took the drive, my hands steady despite the tension coursing through me. This is it. With this, we can take them down for good. As we began to compile the evidence, a sudden noise echoed through the building, a loud crash from the hallway. My heart skipped a beat. "What was that?" I whispered, adrenaline surging through my veins. Evelyn glanced at me, her eyes wide with alarm. "They're coming. We need to move, now." We hurriedly gathered the files, my mind racing to formulate our next move. Just as we reached the exit, the door swung open, revealing Laura and Karen, flanked by two of their henchmen. Laura's face twisted into a smirk, her eyes gleaming with a mix of anger and triumph. Well, well, well. Look who decided to play hero, she sneered. Karen stood beside her, her demeanor icy. You really thought you could outsmart us? You're even dumber than you let on. Her words stung, but I stood tall, my confidence unshaken. It's over, Laura. I have all the evidence I need to expose everything you've done. Laura laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You think a few USB drives and some hacked files can bring us down? You're pathetic. Before I could respond, one of the henchmen lunged at me, attempting to wrestle the USB drive from my hand. Instinctively, I pushed him away, delivering a swift punch to his jaw. The man crumpled to the floor, groaning in pain. Evelyn reacted quickly, pulling out a concealed firearm and aiming it at Karen. Stay back, she commanded, her voice firm. We don't want any unnecessary bloodshed. Karen's eyes darted between Evelyn and me, her facade beginning to crack. This isn't over, she spat, signaling her henchmen to back off. You haven't seen the last of us. With a final blare, Laura and Karen retreated, their plans thwarted by our determination and the undeniable evidence we possessed. As the adrenaline began to ebb, I took a deep breath, the weight of the night's events settling over me. Evelyn approached, a hint of relief in her eyes. We did it. We have everything we need. I nodded, feeling a surge of vindication. Now, it's time to bring them to justice. As we left the safe house, the first light of dawn breaking on the horizon, I felt a sense of accomplishment wash over me. The path to revenge was clear, and with each step, I was reclaiming my life from the deceit that had once threatened to consume it. Laura and Karen had underestimated my resilience and resourcefulness, but now, the tables had turned irrevocably in my favor. The sun had barely risen when I received the confirmation from Sarah, my attorney. The legal groundwork was in motion, and with the evidence Evelyn and I had gathered, we were ready to take Laura and Karen down. The weight of their deceit was finally poised to be lifted, and I felt a surge of anticipation mixed with a steely determination. Evelyn and I met one last time to finalize our strategy. Everything is set, she assured me, her eyes reflecting the seriousness of our mission. The authorities are prepared to move once we present the evidence. I nodded, feeling a sense of closure beginning to settle in. Good. It's time they faced the consequences of their actions. As we headed to Sarah's office, my mind replayed the journey that had led us here. From the initial suspicion of Laura's affair to uncovering the financial manipulations and now, exposing a criminal network, each step had reinforced my confidence and resilience. I was no longer the naive husband blindsided by betrayal, I was a man empowered by truth, ready to reclaim his life. Upon arriving at the office, Sarah greeted us with a firm handshake. We've scheduled a press conference for this afternoon. It's time the world knows the truth about Laura and Karen. My heart pounded with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. The media attention was both a strategic move and a form of public accountability. Laura had always thrived on maintaining a perfect facade, but today, that facade was about to crumble spectacularly. The press conference was held in a large conference room, filled with reporters, cameras, and flashing lights. Sarah stood at the podium, her presence commanding and authoritative. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice clear and unwavering, today we bring to light the extensive deceit and criminal activities orchestrated by Laura and Karen. She presented the evidence methodically, financial records, encrypted emails, and recordings of their conversations. The room buzzed with murmurs as the details of their manipulation and money laundering came to light. I watched as Laura and Karen entered the room, their confident exteriors faltering under the weight of the revelations. Laura's face turned pale, her usual arrogance replaced by panic. This is all a misunderstanding, she protested, her voice shaky. We were just trying to protect our family. But the evidence was irrefutable. Karen, who had always maintained a stoic demeanor, now looked defeated, her eyes downcast. I had no choice, she whispered, barely audible above the din of the room. As the truth unfolded, the emotional toll of the past months surged through me. Anger, betrayal, and a profound sense of vindication intertwined within me. I had trusted both my wife and my mother implicitly, and their duplicity had nearly destroyed everything I held dear. But now, with the truth exposed, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. After the press conference, the authorities moved swiftly. Laura and Karen were taken into custody, their faces a mix of defiance and resignation. The public outcry was immediate, and their carefully constructed reputations were irreparably damaged. Friends and acquaintances who had once admired them now viewed them with contempt and disbelief. In the days that followed, the legal proceedings unfolded rapidly. Sarah was instrumental in ensuring that every piece of evidence was presented meticulously, leaving no room for doubt. Laura's attempts to manipulate the narrative fell flat, her lies unraveling under the scrutiny of the courtroom. Throughout the ordeal, my emotional state was a complex tapestry of relief and sorrow. The satisfaction of seeing justice served was tempered by the pain of realizing how deeply Laura and Karen had betrayed me. Yet, amidst the turmoil, my confidence remained steadfast. I had navigated through deceit, uncovered hidden truths, and stood firm in the face of overwhelming odds. With Laura and Karen behind bars, the immediate threat to my life and reputation was neutralized. However, the journey was far from over. There were still emotional scars to heal and the daunting task of rebuilding my life from the ashes of betrayal. But for the first time in months, I felt a sense of clarity and purpose. As I stood outside the courthouse, watching Laura and Karen being led away, I took a deep breath, savoring the moment of triumph. The path to revenge had been arduous, filled with twists and turns that had tested every facet of my being. But I had emerged stronger, more resilient, and unwavering in my pursuit of justice. Evelyn approached me, her expression a mix of relief and respect. "You did it," she said softly. "You took them down." I nodded, feeling a sense of accomplishment wash over me. "We did it. I couldn't have done it without your help." She smiled, a genuine warmth in her eyes. "Sometimes, you just need someone to believe in you." As we parted ways, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The man who had once been blindsided by deceit was now a beacon of strength and confidence, ready to embrace a future free from the shadows of betrayal. The final showdown had been a test of my character, and I had passed with unwavering resolve. Now, it was time to look forward, to heal, and to rebuild the life that had been stolen from me. With each step, I reclaimed my identity, empowered by the truth and the resilience that had carried me through the darkest of times.